Hi, good morning, everyone. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. So, just a couple of things before we start. One, today what we are going to do is we'll spend some 15-20 minutes maybe on discussing what is the role of a BA, how a BA can progress in their career, and maybe a few certifications which are available for business analysts. Okay. And then we can get into Q&A session where you can ask your questions if you have any questions. Okay. Kindly, I have unmuted everyone just for the sake of no disturbances. In case if you want to speak something, you can unmute and then you can speak. All right. So let's start. So before we start, let me just tell you about myself. So basically, I'm an IT professional and I have been working with IT industry for more than 20 years now. I've done my engineering and then executive MBA from IMK and worked with companies like ICICI Bank's Infotech division, Mastech, and some other companies. I also am a blogger. I write for company blog and also take guest lectures NMIMS, which is the Management College, and SNDP. I also happen to write a couple of books which are published by British Hall of India. It was published a couple of years back. Okay, so along with discussing what is a business, who is a business analyst, and why business analysts are suddenly in demand, we will also be discussing a couple of case studies. In fact, four case studies of students who were coming from different backgrounds with different experience levels, and how did they get into business analysis or business as a business analyst. So this person was Rajiv Masawan, and he was working in travel industry. And he was in Dubai, and then he shifted to India, and he wanted to get into business analysis. So he had no IT exposure, but obviously he had good travel industry experience for over 9 years. The other person was Harish Kumar. He was into TCS, and he was working as a kind of team lead and working on software projects. But obviously no domain expertise, but good exposure to software development process. Then there was 3 years experience .NET developer who was a very good with .NET developer, extremely sharp, but had no exposure to interact with the customers directly because he was sitting in offshore location here. He knew SQL, but no understanding of the domain. And finally, Rajendra Jadhav. He was already working as a business analyst, so he knew a lot of things about business analysis. But he wanted to go to the next level. So now let's quickly try and understand who is a business analyst and what a business analyst is expected to do in an IT company. So let's start with a joke where a patient has come to a hospital and the hospital staff is asking, somebody has kept his phone unmuted. Yeah. Okay. And the hospital attendant is asking that first you have to meet a business analyst because he will first investigate what kind of a problem you have before you can meet a doctor. So this is a joke on business analysts because business analysts are supposed to investigate the problem which a customer is facing and then help him find a solution and also help him implement a solution. Let's get into a little more serious stuff and try to understand what is business analysis first. So there are two key aspects to business analysis. You identify the business needs, and then you determine and validate the solution. So when you say determine, you find out what is the best solution to solve the business needs or fulfill the business needs, and then validate the solution. Obviously, you are not responsible for developing the solution. So that's why developing is not part of this definition of business analyst. So it starts with business needs, then find the solution, and then once the solution is ready, you validate it. That's what business analysts do. So this is just a pictorial representation. So as a business analyst, you talk to the customer to get their business needs, convert them into technical requirements, which could be an SRS or it could be an FS, which is then given to the technology team, which develops the solution. And before it is given back to the customer, you validate it. Okay. So there could be functional testing, which will get involved as part of your role, along with working with the customer for understanding the business needs. So if we try and understand what are the skills of a business analyst. Okay. So broadly speaking, the business analyst should be good at understanding businesses. So that you slowly, as you grow into a business analyst role, you need to start understanding businesses a bit more. In addition to that, you need to have the required technical skills for a business analyst, like you need to know what are the different requirement elicitation methodologies. What are the different modeling techniques? So modeling will involve how do you model a process, how do you model data, and validation techniques. But in addition to all of this, you also need to know you need to be good at communication, because a lot of your job is about communication. On one hand, there is customer, on the other hand, there is a tech team. And the problem is that they don't understand each other's language. So we'll come to that part a little later also. So as a business analyst, broadly speaking, you need to know all of these skills. Now, in the last few years, there has been a lot of demand for business analysts. And there is a valid reason for this as to why suddenly business analysts are in demand and a lot of companies are looking for. So we'll just share some data with you about software projects. There is a company called Standish Group, which publishes data on software projects every year. Okay, and they have been doing it for a long time, more than 10 to 15 years. What they do is they study software projects across the world, but they don't study smaller projects. Typically, they focus on medium to large projects. Okay. Because they are more complex, they involve maybe multi-locational teams and different teams involved in development activities, one in offshore, one on-site. So their findings are always published in a chaos report. That's called chaos report. Now, their finding for 2002 to 2014 says that 84% of the projects, software projects, actually fail. Okay. Now, when they say fail, it does not mean that all of them are closed. It means that either they are delayed or they go over budget. Okay. So that is the percentage of projects which don't succeed. These are the various aspects of fail: late, over budget, less features, cancelled, poor quality, high total cost of ownership, means it has gone beyond the budget, or customers are not completely happy with it. Another data which is now you can see it is 94% of the projects which they studied were either redeveloped from scratch or they were changed quite dramatically. Okay. That means the features which were submitted to the customers were not what they were looking for. This is a little more specific data saying 33%. Yeah, now it sounds better. So 33% of the projects had cost overruns, and which was in the range of 150 to 200%. 48% of the projects were having time overruns, 200% to 400%. Finally, the last figure is 65% of the functionality which was delivered was never used. Okay. Now, obviously, it means that we are building products for no one, because 65% of the features which were developed were never used. Now, what does all of this indicate? It indicates that one of the top reasons for projects to fail has to do with the functionality. Okay. Either we don't understand the functionalities properly, or when it is given to the technical team, it gets to them in a very different format. So what customer is actually looking for never reaches the technology team in the way it should. Or the technology team does not make out from the requirements document or the functional specifications or user stories, whatever methodology you are following, as to what is to be developed. Okay. And most of the time, since we're working in an on-site and offshore model, what happens, there is always a gap or a resistance to keep contacting the customers for clarification. So there is a document which is prepared, and assuming that this is a finalized document, it is given to the technique. So one of the primary reasons which has been found by Standage Group for projects to have a bad track record is requirements. So there are various aspects of requirements. It's not just saying that it's a broad sentence saying that there was a problem with the requirement. There are different kinds of problems. Incomplete requirements, consistency of the requirements was not there. Requirements were not properly explained. So many other problems which are identified. Now, because of this, a specialist role has started to come into more focus. It's not that business analysts have not been there even 20 years back. When I was working, even then, there were people who were doing this kind of a thing, who were specialists in understanding requirements and modeling them. But they were not into that much of prominence. But because now the stakes are much higher, a lot of businesses are completely online businesses. Just think of Amazon, Flipkart, Snapdeal. They are mostly online businesses. Everything happens online. Now, because of all these criticalities of software and the dependence of businesses on software, this role has become pretty prominent. Now the question comes, who all can become a business analyst? So right now, all of you are from IT industry. So of course, developers and testing professionals can definitely become business analysts. But people who are working in different industries, like I showed you somebody from travel industry, we are going to see what they are doing now. People coming from finance industry, people coming from banking industry, people coming from airline industry, all of them are required in IT industry to work as business analysts. Why? Because either they bring in a lot of business understanding, or as you, from IT professional, IT industry perspective, you bring in a lot of technology skills. So you understand what the technology team will be able to understand. Now, if you look at this, you can see that typically business analyst is open for everyone. However, it is not very simple to succeed as a business analyst. So you need to develop complementary skills to succeed as a business analyst. So let's say, for example, somebody who's coming from a business background has no exposure to IT. What all they need to become a business analyst? So on one hand, they will be required to understand a lot of things about requirements. So there could be process modeling, UML diagrams, how to develop SRS or FS, and various other tools and techniques for developing, like sequence diagrams, activity diagrams, use case diagrams, or even SQL. From a functional testing perspective, I think the SQL is required, and also the concept of validating software. How do you validate a software? The concept of functional testing. What kind of different techniques are used? So if somebody is coming from a business background, they need to learn all of it. Now, for people who are coming from IT industry background, like most of you are from IT background, so then what do you need to do to succeed as a business analyst? So again, requirement modeling is a common thing. If you are not familiar with these techniques, you need to have these techniques and good grasp of it. But on the other side, you need to complement all of your technology skills with domain knowledge. It's very important for a business analyst to have a balance of understanding of businesses as well as technology. Now, having said that, you cannot become an, let's say, for example, when I say you need to have a domain knowledge. So let's take an example of banking. So let's say you need to work with a banking customer with whom you have to develop a software. Do you need to be as good as a banking professional itself? So for example, somebody is working on a risk management part. So somebody who approves loan, he looks at the profile of a applicant and says whether the bank can give them a loan or not. Okay. Are you supposed to become as good as that person? No, you cannot, because that's not your strength. That is not your area. They are working in that field day in and day out. They understand the profile of the people, who is a likely defaulter, who is not a likely defaulter. That's their expertise. What you need to know is to understand the terminologies, understand the processes. So if somebody explains to you that what is a risk management, what is the kind of profiling you do in terms of understanding the profile of a applicant, or what is a credit rating? If CIBIL gives a credit rating for a customer, what it is all about? How do you interpret it? So there are certain rating scores, like in India, if CIBIL gives a score which is 2 less than 750, that's a risky profile. But having said that, there are many variations into that. If somebody, like, there are banks who, even with a small delay in your credit card balance payment, they reduce your credit rate. So everything has to be looked into perspective. Okay. So when a banking expert is explaining to you about risk management, you should be able to understand it, so that you can draw the process diagrams. You should be able to create the screens which are required for that particular software. That much understanding of business you need to have. And if you do a project using that understanding, it adds to your profile. Now, how does a career of a business analyst go? Let's look at that. So you start as a junior business analyst, and then you get into a mid-level BA, which is typically 3 to 5 years. Then you become a senior BA, which is 5 to 9 years. Now, in between, now there is a big opportunity which has come because of the analytics. So analytics has suddenly become in demand thing. So as a business analyst, because you are dealing with business problems, and you are handling process modeling. If you understand and develop this skill for data analysis, you add a lot of power to your profile. So that is something which you can do once you work as a business analyst for a few years. Then from senior BA, people go into become enterprise business architects. Then you can become a director, or from a senior BA level, you can also get into project management. That part is also available to most of the people. And then both these profiles can merge into, depending on your capability and skill level, you can get into CXO level, which is CEO or CEO. Okay. That's how the profile of a career of a business analyst can go. Now let's look at some of the certifications. What are the certifications which are available? Now, the certifications start from the entry level itself. Okay, so there are a lot of international organizations which are providing certifications, but they are not recognized quite a bit as of now. Okay. At the mid-level BA here, you have certification from IABA, which is called CCBA. So CCBA is the entry-level certification for business analysts. Okay. For that, they expect you to have around 3,500 hours of experience. 4,500 hours of experience as a business analyst, or in the role of a business analyst. Even if your designation is not business analyst, it does not matter. You should be doing certain roles or certain activities which they have defined as activities of a business analyst. After this, they have something called CBAP, which is the most recognized international certification for BA. And this certification is given by Indian International Institute of Business Analysts, IIBA. Okay. So these are currently two of the most recognized certifications which are available. Okay. So now, what are the typical salary levels of business analysts? So these are very generic figures which we are talking about. Okay, it varies. It can vary for individuals. It can vary in a company. Some companies pay a lot more to business analysts, but in a median, this data is coming from PayScale, which is a standard company which reviews the salaries of various grades in IT industry. So for a business analyst, the salary range is from 2.5 lakhs to 10 lakhs, 10 to 11 lakhs. Median is approximately this much. Okay. Now here we are talking about 2 to 5 years of experience. Okay. Obviously, I'm not considering bonus, profit sharing, and commission, because this also varies from company to company. Next, we'll talk about senior business analysts. So senior business analysts have salary ranges from 4 lakhs to 14 lakhs. Okay, with a median salary of Ishan, can you mute yourself, please? You're generating too much of. Yeah, thanks. Yeah. So senior business analysts are in these brackets. Ishan, I think again you have got unmuted. Can you please mute again? Yeah, thank you. Okay. So these are the various levels of business analysts in India. This is what this data shows is about Indian salaries. But if you talk about what happens to corresponding business analysts in the US, so in the US, the salary ranges are like this. It's approximately $47,000 to $95,000. Okay, this is all salary which does not include anything else. Okay, and median is $66 to $70,000. Now this data is updated in January 2016. You can see that. So what they do, the pay scale company, is that they study and interview people from various companies, and then based on that, they provide this average salary data. Okay, so now we'll get back to our case studies as to what happened to these people whom we have discussed about. So Rajiv Masawan had to come back to India because of certain family issues. So then he thought what he can do to get into IT industry. So obviously business analysis was so yeah. So Rajiv Masawan had good experience at travel industry, and then after learning the business analysis skills, he is now working as business analyst in Infogain. Infogain is one of the large multinationals which is working in travel industry domain. So because he was coming from travel industry domain experience, once he got the experience as a business analyst, he was absorbed by that company. Next case was Harish Kumar Chettiar. So he was working with TCS and he was into software development, but he wanted to move into business analysis. So again, after he brushed up his skills and gained some domain knowledge, he is now in Singapore and he's working on a Citibank project. Again, but he didn't change his company; he's still with TCS. Okay. Then there was Vishal Sharma, who was a typical software or a technology professional, 3 years experience, .NET developer, which we discussed about. He also now into BA and he's working as a BA now. Finally, there was Rajendra Jadhav, who was working as a business analyst, but he wanted to move ahead. So after learning these skills, he's now working as a senior business analyst. So he was promoted from business analyst to senior business analyst. So these are few of the cases where people with various backgrounds, right from technology professional to testing to various other professions, are getting into business analyst roles in various companies. But one small bit of warning to everyone is that if you are not coming from a business analyst background and you want to get into a business analysis, be ready for first 6 months to 1 year to work in a company which is not of your choice, because every big company is looking for experienced business analysts. So they are not going to take you if you are new to business analysis. So don't expect that suddenly you learn business analysis and you get into Infosys, PCS, and so on. That is not going to happen immediately. For some of you, it can happen, but most of you should be ready to grind yourself to gain experience as a business analyst for first 6 months to 1 year. So you might have to work with a small company or mid-sized company. You might have to work, if you are too experienced, 7, 8 years, you might have to compromise for some time on a slightly less salary or equal salary. But once you gain that experience, then you can cover up all the losses which you might have made for a year. So that is something which I definitely wanted to tell you. It's very important to be clear about. Okay, so that is what I wanted to share with you in terms of the business analyst career and the various growth opportunities. Now, if you have any questions, you may ask. You can type in the chat window, that is also okay. Yes, Komal. You want to ask something? Yeah, you can unmute yourself and then you can ask.
Yeah, let's say the project is live. Once the project is live and suppose that some issues come, then as a business analyst, how will I find out that where we messed up or where what is the mistake? I mean, how as a business analyst I will handle that situation.
Yeah, okay. So, see, first of all, as a business analyst, one of the key skill of a business analyst to investigate. Okay. So something obviously has missed out. What you need to do is you need to, if you have an SRS and FS, okay, you need to
Okay.
go back and get to that section as to what was explained there, what was mentioned there, and whatever has been developed, do they match? Okay,
Okay.
because that is the first step. If your responsibility as a business analyst is to document what is expected and then make sure that whatever has been delivered is as per the documentation. That's the
Okay.
basic underlining requirement. Now, if it has not happened, you need to start first whether the requirements which were mentioned they were right or not. So customer might be expecting, because now customer has complained to you saying that this is not something which I wanted.
Okay.
Right. The first investigation point is to understand whether whatever you have mentioned in the requirements document or somebody else, your seniors or somebody else, was right or not, was matching the customer requirements or not. If it was, then obviously the problem was the technology team not developing as per the requirement. Okay.
Okay.
But if you have not mentioned what was expected by the customer in the requirements document, then it's a problem which now will require a lot of effort to handle, because then the requirements, right from requirements till the design to the coding, everything has to change. Okay, and mostly you must be following something called a requirement traceability or impact analysis. It depends on the company's processes, but now you have to go back to the desk and understand what is now the impact of making this right. So it can require database changes, it can require coding changes, depending on the scenario. So then, now, according to the impact of the uh, defect or the changes, you have to now synchronize all the documentation. So are you following agile or you're following normal SDLC?
Normal SDLC.
So then you have to go back, start modifying the SRS, uh, modifying if you have design documents, and then coding has to change. Again, the cycle of testing, and then go back. Okay. Investigation has to start from requirements and then from the technology.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So Manish, Manish's question is, I work as a QA analyst with direct client interaction and working in agile methodology environment. So from a QA analyst, how to move into the role of a BA? Do I need to do some certification for the same? So as we discussed earlier, to move into a BA's role, there are two skills required. Okay, one is the understanding of the requirements modeling and the requirement analysis, and other one to start slowly getting into understanding businesses. So, for example, if you're working with a particular kind of a customer, so it could be related to banking, it could be related to finance, it could be related to mortgage, some domain the business, the customer will be. So first thing, you need to try and understand what the customer is doing, what are their processes. That is the domain knowledge part. On the BA side, of course, you need to know how the requirements are captured, what are different techniques, what are the different modeling techniques like UML. If you are into Agile, your task becomes little easier because in Agile, a lot of documentations are done already. Okay, what kind of documentations are you doing, Manish? Since you are a QA analyst, you might be knowing what documentations happen in a project. When in Agile, you are making all this documentation. Okay, I mean, your team is making. Okay, fine. So, no problem. So then, if you are familiar with these things as to how they are made, what are the different elements of it, the process diagrams or activity diagrams, whatever methodology you're following. So then you need to have a good grasp of it. So on one side, these techniques, BRD activity diagrams, and on the other side, a small understanding of the, good understanding of the business process. These two, if you combine together, then you can move into a business analyst role. Okay, and the best place to start your move into a business analyst career is your current company. If you have that much of leverage in your company, that you can, with these skills, once you acquire, and you can move into the business analyst role, that's the best option. Okay. As far as certification goes, right now you can't do any IIBA certifications because they require you to have a minimum of 3,500 to 4,500 of hours of experience as into the activities of a business analyst. Okay, but in September 2016, they are planning to launch a slightly different way of certification. So they are saying that we'll have now 4 levels of certification. So at the entry level, when you have no experience, you are just getting into business analyst, you can also do certification. But you'll have to wait till September. Then we'll be able to tell you what is possible for entry level business analyst. I hope that answers the question. Yeah, okay, thank you. Anybody else who has a question?